Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about machine embroidery for cosplay or costume making. I've been doing machine embroidery for about 2 years now, and I thought that this would be a great way for me to share some of the things that I've learned over those years with all of you. Today I will be covering the machine aspects of the embroidery, and I will be leaving out the digitizing part of it because that's just another topic for another day. At the end of this video, I'll be answering a few questions y'all asked me over on Instagram a few weeks ago when I put a little Q&A thing. I told you guys to ask me for your embroidery questions, and I will be answering some of those at the end of the video. There are two basic embroidery machine types. There's your single needle embroidery machine, and then there's your multi-needle embroidery machine. I learned how to do embroidery on a single needle embroidery machine, and it was the Viking Topaz 50. It was a sewing machine embroidery machine combo, and I thought that that was a really great level up from sewing for me at the time, and it was a really great machine for me to learn how to do machine embroidery on. With that being said, one of the best lines of embroidery machines that I've been hearing a lot about is the Memory Craft embroidery machine line by Janome. It's got insanely good reviews online, and I know that it's also a sewing machine combo, so you can embroider some days and then you can other days just do your regular sewing, and you have it's preloaded with all these stitches and things. I think that that is a really great, that kind of machine is a really great first ever embroidery machine. Like any big expense, you want to do your research before you purchase it, obviously, and you can also look into used embroidery machine options. I have never bought one used, so I have absolutely no advice for you. Just read the reviews, do your research, and then once you do get the machine, make sure to clean and oil it often and give it its yearly service, and you can take any really embroidery machine and make it last you a very long time. You just gotta take care of it a bit. Let's talk about thread. So there are a few different types of thread that you can buy. There is rayon thread, polyester thread, cotton thread, silk thread, metallic thread. With thread types, we also have to talk a little bit about thread weight. So thread weight is the number that you'll see sometimes on thread. It'll say 60 weight or 90 weight or 40 weight. The lower the weight means the thicker or heavier the actual thread is. So it's pretty typical for embroidery thread to be in about a 30 to 40 weight range, and because of that, a lot of the embroidery designs, which we will get to later on, that you can purchase online are meant for 30 to 40 weight thread. Now there are uses for all different types of thread, but what I typically use in my studio is either rayon or polyester. I like the polyester thread because it has a nicer sheen, and it also breaks the least out of both rayon and polyester. I rarely use cotton thread. I never use silk thread, not because it's not necessarily the best, but because it's way out of my price range. So it's not something that I think is sustainable for the projects that I do and the budget that I have. Both polyester and rayon thread have this beautiful shine to them, and it's not like this costumey satin shine. It's basically a pretty subtle shine when it moves, and it kind of creates a really gorgeous embroidered look, especially if you're doing more of your filler type embroidery and a little bit less of your monograms or things like that. So I personally like polyester the best. I use Floriani. You can see here I have them stored by color in my little handy dandy thread storage, and also because I don't machine embroider every single day, all day, and I'm really only using my thread for about a day or two every 2 to 3 weeks, if even that. I mean, I would say that I use my thread for about 24 hours a month. I keep them in these in my closet with the light off because just like with fabric, the sun can change the color because all of this thread is essentially dyed. So I keep them in a dark space. Unlike this thread up here, this is all sewing machine thread. I go through this really fast, and also if it were to dye a slight color off because of the sun, it's not going to ruin a garment in my opinion. So I do keep these stored in dark places. So this is Floriani polyester thread. Also, if you are using metallic thread, it will break quite a bit. I'm sure you've heard everyone's horror stories of using metallic thread. And that's because it is actually so strong, or thick, strong, when it twists too much, it just snaps. So a fun little trick that you can do if you really want to combat that metallic use breakage is actually when you go to thread your machine, thread it at a horizontal, like have the actual bobbin. I don't think I have metallic thread on top, so pretend this yellow is, so you're gonna actually thread it horizontally instead of vertically, and I will link a video of like how you can create a contraption to do that if your machine is only for vertical. So if you thread your metallic thread horizontally, you will have fewer breakages and it'll just be overall easier and better for you. Moving on to stabilizers. So stabilizers are used to support your fabric while your machine is stitching out on top of your fabric. So basically, if you want to prevent things like puckers or wrinkling or stretching out your fabric, you want to use stabilizer. And there's a few different types of stabilizers. There's actually like a lot of types of stabilizers, but I'm gonna break it down into kind of three basic categories: cutaway stabilizer, tearaway stabilizer, and water soluble stabilizer. So I've actually never used cutaway stabilizer. I'm assuming it's fine. It's exactly how it sounds. You cut it away. What I like to use is the tearaway stabilizer for a lot of my pieces. Basically, the kind that I really like to use is called a heat and stay. This is the Floriani heat and stay. I like this because you basically add it to the backing of your fabric when you're ironing versus using a spray adhesive, although I do have spray adhesives as well. You can purchase spray adhesives at most like quilt shops or things like that. So if you want to go that route, you totally can. The problem that I've found with spray stabilizers, spray adhesives, is they make a mess of your table, and then if you decide you're gonna do it on your bathroom floor, they make a mess of your bathroom floor. So I prefer something that I can secure on with my iron, also because, well, yeah, I prefer something you can secure on with your iron. A water soluble stabilizer is really great for doing things like freestanding lace, for working with organza or tulle. I use this on my organza flowers for Ariel. I use this on Elsa. I use this on, well, both Elsas actually, because I stitched out on both organza and satin for both of them. And then I also used this recently to make my own lace to have like at the cuff of a like a white shirt. And this is really great. Again, this is a heat stabilizer, so you can just iron it on to whatever fabric you're using. But basically stabilizers are how you can kind of hold your fabric taut so that it doesn't ripple through or create puckers again. Another thing that is really helpful for embroidery is called a topper. Basically, a topper can be used for keeping your stitches kind of raised a little bit above your fabric so that it doesn't get sunken in. Like if you're doing something like on velvet, or like if you were doing towels for whatever reason for cosplay, you want it so that you can so that when it stitches out, it will lay on top of it and not get sunken into it. So yeah, there's lots of types of stabilizers out there. Again, the brand that I use is the Heat and Stay Tearaway by Floriani, and then the Embellish Sticky Rinse Away Mesh. Okay, so now we need to talk about needles and bobbins. So just like every other sewing machine, you're gonna wanna change your needle often. And I kind of do mine between every 8 and 10 hours of stitching out. That means like if my machine is running for 2 days with like breaks in between, I'll change my needle. There are some machines, so like my 7-needle embroidery machine, there is a specific type of needle that needs to go in it. So you're kind of given a variety of like sharps or ballpoint or universal for that type. So yeah, but if you're using a more like single needle embroidery machine, you can basically just go onto the Schmetz app and look at what you want for embroidery. I prefer the Floriani Chrome needles if I'm going to be using a single needle embroidery machine, because the chrome is able to take a little bit more of the heat, and therefore it will last longer before it gets dull or breaks or whatever. So needles are a lot like how you would with your sewing machine. You have to know what kind of needle you need for your fabric, and it also obviously has to work and be compatible with your machine. The next thing is bobbins. Now you can go out and purchase pre-filled bobbins. That saves you some time, but that does become pretty wasteful. So I recently, since I got the MB7, I started buying my own spools of, I have both white and black bobbin thread that I buy, and I just fill spools up. Like basically when they all run out, I just take a break, fill all my spools, there we go. If you were doing something with freestanding lace, tulle, organza, you will also want to make sure that you can fill a bobbin with the color of the thread that's on top. So once again, bringing up Ariel, the little flowers that I made for that, I had to make silver, green, and white bobbins so that I could have them match from the top down. So just keep that in mind when you are doing something like that, that you really do need to have empty bobbins around, but you could, if you wanted to, purchase the pre-wound bobbins all you want. Let's talk embroidery designs. So every machine comes preloaded with embroidery designs, which is fabulous. That means that from the start or the get-go, you can start embroidering things. And I highly recommend the day that you open up that machine and you get it plugged in and you have a needle and you have some sort of thread laying around, just play. That's gonna be the best way to learn everything, is to just start playing. But if you're finished playing and you're like, I want to buy things, I want to stitch out some cool design on my cosplay, there's 2 places that I religiously go to. The first is Urban Threads, mainly because I like Urban Threads because they are more of a, they're not really meant for fashion or cosplay, but they have really pretty designs, and I don't know, I've never had a design from them that has been bad. So I go to Urban Threads, and then you can go to design categories if you want an animal or an art style, or what's the one that I always go to? I think I go to Specialty. Specialty is my favorite. If you can see here, this butterfly is a freestanding lace. This peacock, I've almost bought this bobbin work peacock a million times. But basically, this will start you somewhere. If you wanted frames, we're just clicking, yo. But yeah, so I really like Urban Threads. So that's Urban Threads. The other one that I love is Etsy. So I go to Etsy and hypothetically, say I need some kind of embroidery for, oh geez, Lestat. Let's just go there. Lestat embroidery. I doubt that I could find this. This is one of the ones that I know that I'm gonna have to digitize myself. Okay, that was a really bad idea. So, okay, let's look at my recently viewed here. And I recently viewed this foolish mortal. So to actually find this embroidery file, I literally searched in here like haunted mansion embroidery. Embroidery. There we go. Awesome. And then you could go a step further and do embroidery design or whatever, but like then you'll see all of these different embroidery designs that you can buy. These were not options when I'm pretty mad about that. Anyway, so yeah, that is how you can do that. And basically anything you can think of, like you can search. And obviously if you cannot find it on Etsy or you cannot get inspiration from Urban Threads, then you can always just Google. Like you can literally just go into Google. I know you guys hate this answer. Like I know everyone does. I just told somebody to Google earlier today. I'm sure y'all hate me for it, but you can literally Google. There's like so much at your like that you can do to get new designs. Also some machines allow you to kind of pick apart and replace current designs. I know I did this on one project, but like I probably don't have video footage of it, but I rearranged a design that was already programmed in my Viking, and I just like, I made it, oh, Stella Goza. I'll put a photo of it right here. On Stella Goza's bodice, I took apart the embroidery design, the little swirly swirl that they had in there already pre-programmed, and I placed a bunch of them down, and then I like played with their angle, their size, and everything to kind of replicate what the drawing looked like. So you can basically do whatever the frickety frick you want with your embroidery designs that are already loaded on the machine. Play, get creative, like the world, the embroidery world is your oyster. Okay, so now let's answer some questions. Okay, Q&A time. So I asked over on Instagram a couple of weeks ago what information y'all would like to know or about machine embroidery. And I had several answers that I actually used to help script this video. So I've already answered them. There's a few that are just way too like advanced for me to describe and I would have to do an entire video on. A lot of y'all wanted to know about multi-hooping, and I'm probably gonna have to just like bow out on that one. That would be an entirely separate video. And it's a very hard question to answer, mostly because of the fact that multi-hooping is actually going to be different per machine. I say that because I've had 2 embroidery machines now, and where multi-hooping was done in a specific way and had a specific way to line things up and like things that it would tell you to do, this other one, the 7 needle, is completely different. And I'm just not confident that I would be able to give the right information to the largest amount of people. So I'm not 100% sure how to answer your questions on multi-hooping. However, I do have a few questions I can answer, so let's start. To embroider a pattern piece before or after sewing the main body together? Before. So I'd show this pretty in depth on my Elsa video about making the embroidery on Elsa, but basically if you have a bodice piece or a sleeve or a collar or something that you're going to be embroidering, you want to have a piece of fabric large enough to get inside your hoop that will cover the wherever you're going to be embroidering it. So with the Elsa sleeve, I had the dimensions of the sleeve in a rectangle and I added a few inches on each side and I lined things up. You can draw onto your fabric where you want your needle to start if you know exactly where your design is going to start. And then I stitched it out and then I cut out my pattern piece and sewed everything together. Sewstein does really amazing work where she actually digitizes her garments, and I will link in the description. She will digitize the garments so that like if it's gonna go around a curve, it is actually in the digital file, and it will stitch out a line like a running stitch that will show you this is at the edge of the fabric or the edge of the design, so that she has a visual to see when she's working with her fabric. It's really brilliant, and that's actually kind of, I took that inspiration when I did my stomacher for my 18th century pumpkin dress, and I did a running stitch around the entire thing so that I had an idea of what my space was. So definitely before. I just realized I'm going to probably answer 2 to 3 minutes on all of these because I'm like that. So, oh, this is easy actually. Can we make a big embroidery with a small hoop? Replace it. Technically, yes. So if you have a really large design and you want it to be, you only have a certain sized hoop, technically you can stitch it out. It will be what's called multi-hooping. So you will need it broken up into several segments. When you purchase this design online from the digitizer, some of them won't sell it to you in multi-hoops. And so you'll have to either email them or request it to be digitized for a multi-hoop process. But basically you can purchase designs and get them rehooped. The process of getting them digitized to fit your hoop in your machine might take, it might take the person a couple days to get back to you and do it. And also a lot of people don't offer that. Otter Stitch asked, how can you keep the fabric tension? So technically when you hoop your fabric, when you're tightening that hoop with your stabilizer and your topper, you are actually creating the tension on your fabric. So like, that's why you want to get it very tight. You don't want no saggy bottoms here. You want to make sure that it is tight, like, yeah. But you also don't want it too tight to where it will stretch. As you do it, you'll start to feel what that good sweet space is. The last question, best fabrics to use, multi-hooping, helpful tools, things you wish you knew before. That's a lot. But the thing that I wish that I absolutely knew before, this is, the thing that I absolutely wish I knew before was to stitch out a practice stitch before the actual thing. And practice making pillowcases and towels and little things like maybe you're gonna make your significant otter a shirt and there's a pocket in the shirt. Embroider something on the pocket. Like, do other smaller things so that when you finally get to the silk or to your ball gown or to freestanding lace, things like that, that you're already comfortable with the machine, how the machine works, how to thread it, how to, what stabilizers to use, practice, play. It's an expensive machine, and to have it just sit there and not use it at all is kind of sad. It kind of hurts my soul, especially when I go weeks without using mine. I feel really pretty sad because I love it so much, but I just don't always have the time. But definitely play and practice and stitch everything out once with all of the right materials that you need to do before doing it for reals. And if that first one is perfect, then please at me, please tag me and tell me. All right, friends, well, there you have it. That's today's video on the introduction of embroidery for cosplay. It is a lot. We barely scratched the surface. There is so much that you can cover when talking about embroidery for cosplay, tools, all of those kinds of things. But I really hope that this was enough information for you to kind of get an idea of what all goes into it. I will say this, that machine embroidery is not set it and forget it. There is so much more work that goes into machine embroidery than people will ever acknowledge or even could imagine. It, especially when you get down to the digitizing aspects, it's really an art form in and of itself. And I think that it deserves a lot more credit in the cosplay community, but as well as just in the world. I think that machine embroidery is, yeah. Thank you all for watching this video. I really, really appreciate it. And a special thanks to my patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. Your support helps me make these videos. So if you would like to help support me, help me make costumes for this whole YouTube verse world, head on over to my Patreon. I will link it right above. And if you just like my content and you want to support me by hanging out with me here in the comments, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And just, yeah, thank you all again so much for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Happy sewing!